are back, guys. Welcome to the Spawn Podcast. For those of you listening on Spotify, we are up on YouTube Live. This was a last minute edition. We actually weren't planning on doing one this weekend, but my boy PJ finally managed to get his rod wet, and he went out and got some fish. So I wanted to be able to get him on here, talk about his experience and his first trip out in the new home. So we're gonna go right to him and let him talk about his fishing adventures to start out the show.
Yeah. So, like you said, this was my first fishing adventure in Indiana. This was a first of many when I get into this, because as I like to chase trout. I like to chase steelhead all over. I have set kind of a goal for myself. Any state that does have trout in it, I like to try to pick at least one trout in that state. I think I'm up to like 8, maybe 10 different states now that I've caught trout in. So I'm pretty excited about that there. But mostly I was just excited to get out, do some fishing, do some exploring here in Indiana, see what this state had to offer, and just get out and do some it's almost winter, I guess you could say, so
Yeah.
do some winter fishing, do some exploring, see if I can make something happen on a trout stream for steelhead, for trout. So you saw the pictures. I sent them to you like immediately.
Oh, yeah.
So this was our first trip to Lake Michigan. First time I've ever fished Lake Michigan. I have fished Lake Erie in the past when I lived in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So this is my first trip to Lake Michigan. I did a little bit of research on this, watched some YouTube videos. I have read internet reports, and there's not too much as far as like internet reports, or none that I'm finding. So if there's any listeners out there, if they want to contact me and say, hey, look at this website, read this, follow this page on Facebook, follow this person on YouTube, or those suggestions my way, I will definitely look into them, because what information that I got out there is very limited. So basically this is just like me and my son off the cuff. Friday after Thanksgiving, we're going to take a trip, 4.5 hour one way. So we took a 4.5 hour trip. Oh, yeah. Dude, I was up at 3 a.m. 3 a.m., packed everything up the night before, waders. We took the noodle rods. We didn't take the fly rods this trip because I kind of wanted to get a feel for the size of the stream that we were going to be fishing. So I wasn't going to bring the fly rod just yet. I wasn't sure how many anglers there was. I wasn't sure, what kind of insects or pattern that I should use for the fly rod. So this was kind of just like an exploratory trip, so to speak. So we went there, like I say, 4.5 hour drive, got there at about 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30. Would have got on the trout stream a little bit earlier, but we did run into an older gentleman. He had a flat tire, so I helped change his tire for him. So I like to think
You set yourself up for some karma.
Yeah, like the steelhead gods were looking down on me, and they were like, "Man, you help this guy out." So we helped him change his tire right there at the marina. So I was kind of looking at the water clarity, and the water clarity was absolutely gorgeous. It was clear, a little bit of debris, a little bit of leaves and stuff in the water, which was not to be unexpected this time of year. Decided to not fish down at the marina. It's kind of wider, probably, I'm going to say about 30, 35 feet wide. So I'm guessing it was going to be pretty deep. They did have some big boats in the marina there, some 30-footers, 40-foot boats that were dry docked there. So I'll be guessing it would have been kind of deep, so we'd have been throwing spoons all day. And I really didn't feel like getting into throwing spoons, just chucking spoons all day long. So we ventured upstream a little bit further, and we found a kind of like it was a lamprey dam, and it kind of.
So that's Daniel from
Okay.
my buddy on the May Contain.
Okay.
And because he's down in Georgia, he said he'd have to drive 6 hours to
6
find.
hours. Right. Georgia's another state on my list where I know they have trout. Gonna venture back down here to Alabama, so I'm hoping to venture over to like Cloudland, Georgia. So I'm gonna venture over to Georgia and hopefully get into some trout in that state. Take that state off my list next. But like I say, we found this dam, and they had markings on there. They showed like, browns that came across, steelhead that came across, rainbows that came, and they had it all documented there for you, so you could kind of look at that there. So we were looking at that, which was really helpful, So we kind of knew what kind of trout, steelhead were going to be in that area. It's kind of hoping for maybe luck into a salmon, but like I say, I wasn't pushing my luck.
Right.
I just was wanting a fish.
That's the thing about Michigan is you don't only just have like the trout species, but in the rivers you're gonna get coho, landlocked, and king salmon too, because Michigan has all of them. So you're gonna get, and Michigan's the big boy king salmon lake. That's where the 40-50 pounders are. So
see,
they
that's
may
what
not
I've
be
seen
in the
on
streams
the
where
internet.
you are, but
yeah, that's what I saw on the internet. That's what I was hoping that we would get into. But like I said, I wasn't pushing my luck.
Right.
I just wanted to catch. I just wanted to see fish. If I saw a fish, So we found this spot, and me and my boy, we walked back through. There was like a little path there, so we walked back through there and kind of looked at the stream and looked at the area. You could tell there were people who had been fishing there, but didn't look like anybody had been there recently because it was kind of dirt and muddy. So we went back. We still had to buy our Indiana fishing license. So we went back to the car. We're getting dressed, buying our Indiana fishing license. We didn't do that the night before. I don't know why we didn't, but we did it.
Right.
Bought our license, got dressed, got our waders and our noodle rods all rigged up. And I told my son, I'm like, dude, I don't know what's going to be in here. So I'm just going to throw, I don't know. I'm just going to say, I threw a Mepps spinner, just the black one with the yellow dot, gold blade. You know what I mean? Like an exploratory lure. You know what I mean? Like, so I walked up stream there, probably about 200 yards. And we're standing on this one little bank, and I'm reeling it in, and I have like a 6-inch little brown rainbow following my spinner back. I told my boy, I'm like, hey, there's a 6-inch in here. At least I just seen a sign. I'm like, okay, this is good. So we fished there for a little bit, didn't have anything, and we heard a splash in the water. Didn't see anything, but we heard it just up around the bend from us. So we kind of ventured up that way. Now there was some ducks sitting in, so it could have been the ducks. I have no idea, but they took off when we got up there. There was like 2 or 3 ducks right there. So I'm casting in this little, there was like a tree on the far side and it kind of wide. And then right in front of me, there was a downed log. And everything that I saw on the internet for Indiana was fish around this structure. Just fish, these guys were throwing mostly like single beads, single eggs and sacks on a float. And they were throwing it by these log jams and stuff like that there. So I told my boy, I'm like, man, I said, this just looks good. This has the good makings of, what I've seen on the internet. So this looks pretty good. And I threw that Mepps in there a couple of different directions, and I'm doing like my, just working my way across there and hitting different areas. And I brought it through, and I told him, I'm like, I felt something. I said, ooh. I said, that felt like a hit. And he's like, where at? I'm like right out there, and you can see. I'm gonna say it was probably like 5 to 6 foot deep in the center. And you can see that little log, and then you couldn't see past it. And then you can see the other side going up the bank with the other side. And the creek was probably about maybe 12 foot wide where we're fishing at right there. And it was off, like I said, it was off this bend.
Oh, so you had an inside turn, probably an eddy caused by that log. So you had like the perfect storm.
Exactly. You had that, that little eddy right there. So I cast back out there 2 more times. And the next time it stopped. I mean, it stopped. And I set the hook a little bit, and I could feel the fish on there. And I didn't know how big it was, but it didn't hit like a steelhead. I'm like, what in the world? And I just assumed, like, okay, it's one of them little 6-inch rainbow brown brookie things. It's going to be in there. And it comes up to the surface, and it's underneath there, and I can just see the underbelly. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So my boy, he looks at me and he was like, "You're on." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on. I'm on. This is it. I'm on." And I'm reeling. And then that's whenever he realized, the fish realized I had him hooked. So he just went like absolutely crazy. He's going back out and in and out and in. And I'm trying to fight to keep him out of that log jam. That was my biggest concern was like, please just keep him out of this log jam. So I kind of walked upstream a little bit and was trying to, get his head turned. I finally got him turned back up this way. And, my boy, he's got the net, and he's standing on a log that was on top of the log jam. So he's like maxed out, the log that he's on is starting to crack.
Yeah. Because he's about ready to go. Yeah. About the Tom Sawyer floating down the river at that point.
So he's reaching, and I'm yelling at him. I'm like, where's my net man? Where's my net man? And the fish, and I took just a regular, it's a pretty decent sized net. But the fish was probably 26, 27, 28. I was
going to say that looked like a 26, 28-inch fish. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was. I didn't even bring a board with me. I usually bring a board with me, but like I said, this was just exploratory. I didn't expect too much. So he gets his head in there, and the fish is backing up out, and I'm like, just grab his tail. And I'm at this point, I'm like 8 feet from the shoreline now, backing up, trying to get him as close to the log jam as possible so my boy can get him. So I just threw like all ditch effort. Like I seen the head was in the net. So I just pulled up and I ran over and I reached down and I grabbed the net and was able to get him up over the bank. And I was like, oh my God, it was like, oh my gosh, this actually happened. I can't believe it. So, we got a few pictures, and then, released him back out into the water there.
So this is a question from Michael Bradley that came in. He said, wasn't there an episode of Northern American Fishermen where they're using jerk baits in those marinas? And I actually replied in the chat because lake trout, people think that, like, it's funny, like there's a stigma around jerk baits. Jerk baits have become like known as a bass bait, but walleye guys, trout guys, salmon guys have been using shad wraps and jerk baits for as long as they've been on the market. Like I know when I was a kid, we used to troll the deeper diving jerk baits for landlocks.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad would hook those behind a downrigger ball.
Yeah, like walleye fishing, I've used jerk baits, but like steelhead fishing, I've never used a jerk bait, but I do use when I'm fishing over in Ohio, and I will here like I said, this was just exploratory. Once I get to know this area and get to know what I can do and can not get away with, I will use, because I used it in Ohio, I will use like a 1.3 or 1.3, 3.5 crankbait, and I've used lipless in the shad keller. And I've used, in the steelhead, just absolutely crush those.
Trout as a species love lipless. It's kind of a little known fact. Like, I've caught a lot of trout not a lot, but I've caught trout by accident fishing for bass with lipless. Because of the profile. They like it's the shape of the kind of fish they eat.
Mm-hmm. Now, like the trout lure, the little Rapella, the little 2-3 inch
Yep.
trout Rapella. I've
Yep.
actually caught bigger brown trout. It was the rainbow
Yep.
trout, but I've caught bigger brown trout in the rivers and streams at my cabin in Pennsylvania but I was never using it as a jerkbait. I was always, just using it as a crankbait
Yep.
and cranking it through the water. But yeah, the jerkbaits, I will, because I have used them for walleye. I will see if I can get away with them here in Indiana. So I am
Dude, if
planning.
you're in a kayak, and you're in a Michigan, like Lake Michigan tributary, you don't, I mean, I'm just thinking about this. Like, if you're fishing a jerkbait traditionally, dude, you could come out of there with a 4-pound smallie, a walleye, a pike. Like, there's so many species that you could end up with because it's got everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's the cool thing about where you're at. Like, for Lake Michigan's kind of like my Champlain, where like it's everything's in there and everything goes in and out of those tributaries depending on the time of year. So
Right.
that's crazy, dude. I couldn't imagine. Like, I am waiting. Honestly, I've been waiting for you to go fishing because I'm waiting for you to accidentally hook into a king.
Oh no. Yeah.
Like, dude, you get up there, like, because there's got to be a salmon run there.
Well,
I mean,
there is,
in
yeah.
August, there's usually August in the
Mhm.
fall. Lake Ontario has the same thing, dude. A king salmon on a fly rod would be just insane.
Well, see, the thing is, and that's what I was talking to my boy. See, my boy has gone to Lake Ontario and has salmon fished, and he's caught numerous kings. And he told me, because we were discussing that on the way over,
Yeah.
and he was like, "It's a good thing we don't have our fly rods today." He was like, "Because if we do get into a king," he was like, "we don't have the tackle
No.
to land it." He was like, "There's just no way." He's like, we can. Our rods are capable of it. You know what I'm saying? Our rods are capable of it, but our tippets and our leaders and they're not. We're not set up for that. We're set up for steelhead, maybe a 10 to 12 pound at max steelhead. And I'm thinking that steelhead that I caught. I kind of, like I said, I didn't bring any scales. I didn't bring any measuring boards. I'm just kind of guesstimating from previous ones. I'm going to say that was 26 to 28 inch steelhead. So I'm guessing it was probably like in the 6 to maybe
I was thinking 6 to 8
range, something like that there. But not the biggest that I've caught, not the littlest that I've caught, but definitely my very first one from Lake Erie. So that's how you're going to start.
Dude,
that's a good one to start.
Dude, so that one you sent me, that was your first fish you caught?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dude, so that's almost bad though.
I know.
That's almost frustrating now because you've already got a PB in your state and your PB is 26 to 28 inches. So it's like now you catch a 12 or 13 incher and you're like, it's not even close to what I started with. Like you can only go up from here. It's hard to go up from there. Because like 28, 26, that's a big steelhead.
We worked our way up through there, and my boy, he ended up catching 3, and I think his biggest one was probably like in the neighborhood of, I think the biggest one he ended up catching was like 15, 16 inches. Yeah. Steelheads like blade baits, don't they? Yes, they do. Yeah, blade baits. I use a lot of blade baits for fishing for steelhead. And that's what I was saying. If I'd have been at the lake, I would have been using spoons. I would have been using blade baits, something like that there. But like I said, first trip out, I wanted to kind of stay smaller profile in the stream and go for something that I knew trout would be keyed in on.
Yeah.
So, we used the little spinners, the MEPS. My boy was using pink rooster tail.
Yep.
And that's what he caught. That's what he caught his on too. So yeah, like I said,
you said you were using the black. Was it the black with the yellow dot, or was
black
it
with the yellow dot?
Dude,
black with
to be honest, so this is gonna sound really, really negative, but MEPS needs to make black with yellow dots, that weird fucking bubblegum pink one, and the fire tiger, and they can stop making all the other colors. It's just too much room in their aisle. They don't need it because those 3 colors will get you fish. And I'm not just talking steelhead, dude. In the beginning of the year, so come April, right? When I start going spawn fishing, I have a size 4 and a size 3 Mepps Fire Tiger that'll be on a spinning rod in my kayak bass fishing, because I'll tell you right now, dude, they love, because it looks like a perch fry.
Right. Yep.
And they like it, and you'll be shocked. It's terrifying, honestly, because you hook a 5-pound bass on a size 3 Mepps. That's not a very big treble hook. It's actually hard to get the treble hook out of their mouth because it's buried in their skin, because there's not a lot of hook there. Like I actually buy Mepps, the dressed ones with the yellow like marabou on the bottom of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And dude, I buy those and I use them. That's pretty much the only time of year I use them. But dude, and the funny part about the thing I love about a Mepps spinner is it has like the stigma of being like this old school bait that no one really uses anymore. But dude, you'll catch trout, you'll catch pike, you'll catch bass, you'll catch pumpkin seed, you'll catch perch, you'll catch just about every species of fish. You never know what you're pulling back with that bait.
Mm-hmm.
And trout love those things, dude. Like, it's crazy how much they like those baits. You just gotta get the small ones for the trout because they like the smaller size ones.
Yeah, and see,
what
that's
size
what
were you using?
I was saying, man. This was simply like, I was probably like, my confidence level of catching a fish, I was probably under 50%.
Yeah.
Because just reading online and then watching YouTube videos is not the greatest. I mean, that's where you get your information from. Don't get me wrong. That's where I get it from.
Yeah. Don't watch YouTube videos for your information as you're watching a YouTube video.
As you're watching YouTube videos, yeah. But like, you like,
it's
for me
hard,
to physically see it, I had to see it like, I can, like, I've been to Lake Erie, 1,000 times, and I fished walnut and elk in the mile streams on the east side of Erie, and I fished in Ohio. I fished Conneaut, I fished the Rocky, the Chagrin, the Grand. So whenever I read the info that those guys are saying on there, and guys, 50% of the time probably lie. Yeah. But whenever they say where they're at, and if they do give a good description of where they were, I can generally relate because I've actually physically seen the water, and I was there last year. I was there last week or last month. So I kind of know where they're talking about. This one here, I had never laid eyes on the stream at all. I had no idea what kind of, nothing, how deep it was, how wide it was. I knew nothing about this stream. I don't know what empties in there. And I actually did see, like, the one place where we did end up fishing, there's like a beaver pond on the backside, and the beaver pond was flowing down in there, which was really cool. So I don't know, like, would they have been hiding, over there, getting anything that came out of that little beaver pond? I knew nothing about that.
For those guys that watch my channel too, like, I talk a lot about map study. There isn't map study on streams.
No,
they don't have depth chart maps for streams. Like, unless it's a huge, like the Susquehanna, yeah, I'm sure it's got depth charts. But like these tributaries to Lake Michigan, some of them are gonna have it, but most of them. And the difference between, like, it's kind of like the fly fishing bank, it's more bank fishing style. So no one's going to tell you, oh, you park here and you walk 40 yards and there's a big rock and then there's a tree that looks like an eagle. They're not going to give you all that detail because that's their spot. That's like giving your waypoints off your fish finder. They're not going to give you that data. Yeah. You've got to go find that yourself. They may tell you what baits work in a body of water, which will help you. But unlike the bass fishing world where you can kind of surf around and find stuff, you're just trucking up the lake because it's not, it's a stream, so it's moving, so it's a living thing, and the fish aren't always in the same spot. There's spots they'll hang out, but they're gonna move, especially depending on the conditions.
Yeah. See, that, like, when I read the Lake Erie, the reports up there, somebody will say, like, I was fishing down from the tubes. So I fished there 1,000 times. I know where the tubes are, and I know where downstream from the tubes are. like over on the, the Grand, there's a name of a park. I fished from this landing downstream, or I fished from the landing upstream. So you kind of have an idea. Okay, they parked here, or they walked in a different direction. They could have said they were fishing at some park, and I'm like, is that a baseball field? Is that a dog park? Is that
you've got to learn all the new vernacular, dude, because it's like, I know when I fish Ontario, so when we do the king salmon fishing thing, there's a nuke plant right there it's literally a nuclear power plant, like in a little like peninsula that sticks out into the water, and there's all the supporting structures. So a lot of the like waypoints are, I'm 3 stacks to the right, or right. I'm off the plant to the north, or I'm off the water plant, or I'm off the dunes, or there's all these like places that don't exist on Google Maps that the local fishermen know.
Right.
But there's no like, and it's all like access names and stuff. Like for fly fishing, a lot of times it's the pull off. Like there'll be just a dirt pull off on the side of the road, but that's called Fred's Parking or Fred's Gorge, or it's named after some idiot that jumped in there drunk 20 years ago, and that's why it was named that way. But everybody names it, so then you know where you're at. So it's a little bit, you're talking a whole different world. Like that's one thing that I never got into really was bait fishing. It's mostly because I don't like all the extra exercise, but it's not a lazy man's game.
Yeah, so this is what I really enjoy. And now, for the fact that I started off with this big fish, I'm instantly like, okay, I'm off this weekend, heading back up there. So I've already been talking to my wife, and I'm like, hey, what do you got going on? Sunday, 4-hour drive all the way up, or 4 hour, it's 8-hour drive, 9-hour drive round trip to fish like 3 hours. But to me, it's worth it. I have to do it. I'm sorry.
It's like tournaments for me, dude, though. Like I say it's nuts, but like I drive 3 hours to a tournament and fish for 6-8 hours and then come home and I'm gone for 16 hours.
I know, right? That's all I'm thinking. Like, okay, if I leave from work, I'm already a half hour to the good. So now that's only 4 hours, though. I'm already halfway. In my mind, I'm already halfway there.
Right.
That's how I got to try to sell her on it. 4 hours. She's just like, 4 hours is 4 hours. I'm like, no, halfway there, babe. I already shaved a half hour off.
Yeah. No, it's funny too, because it's funny to think about. I was talking to Maine today. So I was looking at that. So little foreshadowing. I think I'm doing the Susky event. I think I'm doing the Drew Gregory event.
Yeah.
Dude, it just looks like so much fun. So for those of you who don't know, there's a new tournament series starting up next year called the Kayak Adventure Series. And it's a 2-day tournament. It's a huge event. They're going to be televising it on Outdoor Network. It's going to be a huge thing. It's going to be probably, if it really gets executed properly, it's going to be the biggest kayak trail in the country. It's going to be the one that everybody knows about. It's going to be the Bassmasters of the kayak trails. Honestly, it's that level of an event, and they're doing a bunch of events. So the one event that's really the closest to me is the Susky, because the headquarters is in PA. So I've been talking to Maine, and I've been talking to some guys here. I actually talked to Bobby Roast Beef from the Jigs and Bigs podcast, and I'm trying to get a group together, because I'm thinking if we can get 3-4 guys that want to fish it, we could rent out an Airbnb, because realistically you'd have to get up there like Wednesday,
right,
and pre-fish Thursday. I'm not gonna. It's a freaking monstrous river that you're never really gonna ever figure out, but at least see it. You know what I mean? So if I could get out of work on Wednesday, take Thursday off, go fish it. If we got an Airbnb for 4 nights and I can get 3-4 guys and just do the air mattresses on the floor deal, it'd be a lot cheaper. But that's like, I think 6-8 hours, depending on where exactly it is. So it's like, it's funny how I was talking to him about it, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at, is like, when you're talking fishing, driving distances is irrelevant. It really is. Like, you don't realize once you really get deep into this fishing game stuff, like, dude, thinking about driving if I had to drive 6 hours to just go to a show, wouldn't do it. If I had to drive 6 hours to travel for the holidays, wouldn't do it. You say, hey, pay $175 entry fee plus $100 a night for a hotel to fish against people in a different lake that you've never fished for, and I'm like, take my money. I'm on my way.
Let's do this.
It's so funny how you think about it. And it's funny because if you talk to people who don't fish, because I work in a tech support job, so I work with people who hiking is like their idea of outdoors. Like that's it. There is no hardcore fishermen. There's no hardcore hunters. A lot of them are software developers. They're nerds. They're guys that play video games, and that's all they really do. So like when I say, oh yeah, I got a tournament on Saturday, and they're like, oh yeah, where? And I'm like, oh, it's in Massachusetts. And they're like, Massachusetts? And I'm like, yeah, it's about 150 miles. And they go, you're going to drive 150 miles to fish a tournament? I'm like, yeah. They're like, when are you leaving? I'm like, the morning of. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh yeah, I get up at 2. I drive down there, have a captain's meeting at 5:30, and I fish till 4, and then I go home. And they're like, you're going to be gone from 2 a.m. to like 7 o'clock at night? And I'm like, yeah.
That's normal. That's normal.
Like, the thing is the only difference is I'm getting up 4 hours earlier than I would to just go fish locally. Other than that, the day is the same.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's crazy, dude. Like, so I was saying this in the green room before we got in here was, it's funny how your fishing season is starting and mine is over. Like you're like, yeah, I'm finally out. I was just started fishing, and I was like, I actually didn't even go hunting tonight. Like I was supposed to go hunting tonight, and I woke up. I went to bed last night. Right before I went to bed, I texted my dad, and I was like, I'm not going tomorrow morning. I don't feel like it. Dude, I don't know if I told you this, dude. I have shingles in my ear. Like I have shingles in my ear.
Oh my goodness!
Do you know you could even get that? I had no idea.
I had no clue.
Yeah, so Monday night I heard like a pop in my ear, and I thought like it was just like elevation or pressure or something, but then I lost hearing in my ear, and then I couldn't hear on my ear at all. And then the next day I was at work, and I could feel the HVAC system in my ear. Like it was like when you roll the back window of a car down and you get that it was like that.
Oh my god.
Sitting at my desk. And I was like, I can't do it. I messaged my boss, and I'm like, I got to go to the doctors or something. I don't know what the hell is going on. So I ended up making a doctor's appointment, and she kept checking out this rash behind my ear. And apparently I have shingles behind my ear. So I just barely got my hearing back. And I've been hunting through that, but I've been taking 1,000 milligram antiviral 3 times a day plus prednisone.
Oh my goodness.
And then hunting, sitting in the freaking 12-degree temperatures in a tree in the wind. And I was just so exhausted that I didn't even go hunting today. So then I decided not to hunt tonight, and I'm like jonesing for fishing. Like I was sitting literally while we were waiting to get on, I was actually making a schedule because I'm going to be doing bait making videos in my shed. I decided. So I'm setting up, like I have a tablet and a webcam and stuff, and I might even live stream some of them. And I'm sitting here trying to think about all this stuff, and then I'm like, that motherfucker is fishing right now. Like he's out there fishing, and I can't even, like, I'm done. This is the end of my season right here. From here on out, anything fishing I do that's fishing related is going to be on here. It's going to be talking about fishing. It's going to be discussing fishing. It's not going to be actually fishing. So
that's what, like, some of the guys that we work with, they take vacations all the time, and I'm like, nah, I'll work all summer long. I'll do whatever, because I'll get out and fish in the summertime. I fish tournaments here and there, and me on the days off, me and my wife, we get the kayaks out and we get fishing. But then once, like, I have a time frame, like soon as Halloween hits, at least in Ohio, when Halloween hits, don't even ask me to work. Don't ask me for my weekends, because I'm heading to Lake Erie. I'm still head fishing, and it's going to be, once I figure it out, I'm going to be there every single weekend, because that's when my fishing season starts for the most part, let's just say. But then, like, I'll fish all winter long for steelhead and up area, steelhead and walleye. April rolls around. Trout season starts in Pennsylvania. So I'm over at my cabin fishing. May rolls around. bass and tournament season starts.
Yep.
So I'll start fishing then. But like I said, I don't make it a point to miss work. Let those guys have their time. They can
right.
take the family on vacation, do whatever they want, because like I say, me and my wife, we're looking at, I'm hopefully we're looking at heading back down to Gulf Shores here over the holidays for around Christmas, New Year's again, and go down there and hopefully get into the Spanish mackerel again, because that was an absolute blast. So even though I left the Alabama area, still got to go back down there for the fishing, because it's awesome. It's second to none.
See, that's the thing for me, dude, is I'm getting more into, so I swore off ice fishing, dude. Swore it off. Was done. Not doing it anymore. I'm sick of it. Last year we didn't get any quality ice. I was gonna try ice fishing last year again. And I say try it. Like, I was a kid, I was on the lake every weekend. My dad had, homemade, plywood built shanty that we brought out there. We left it out there. We tied it down, and, we fished a lot. But I just never really got into it because of the work involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of effort. But Bear Fishing, VT2U, they messaged me. So VT2U goes, "Hey, do you ice fish?" And I was like, fuck. Like, I knew where the question was coming. And he's another YouTube guy, so he wants to make content. So it's on top of, he's not only enticing my fishing itch, but my content creation side too, because he's all about trout. Like, he goes out, this kid, you should check out his channel, dude, if you haven't. He goes out and jigs for trout on Champlain.
See, that's awesome.
In a paddle kayak.
That's awesome.
And he uses this irregular Striker 4 2D down imaging sonar deal, and he gets on him and he makes his own. He actually makes and sells his own like special jigs, which are kind of basic, but dude, he literally goes out there and catches like 28 30-inch Lakers just jigging for him in a kayak. Loves it. And he was like, "Yeah, so do you ice fish?" And I was like, I mean, yeah, I will. Yeah. I'm like, I literally told him, which was, I think, probably could come off as offensive if you didn't understand how fishing works, is I'm like, I go ice fishing, but I don't, like, I go with, like, if someone's going, I'll join. If you're going to go out there and drag the equipment out, I'll help you set up. I'll help you take down, but I don't want to be the guy that has to lug 200 pounds of equipment across unlevel terrain in a sled. I'm just not built for that. I just don't want to do it. Like, it's not that much fun to me. And I don't know where to go. Like, I haven't done it in so long. And when I was a kid, we all went to the local lake that was right down the road from my house that, like, you fish the north end. That's just where everybody, like, there's like a shanty town that just shows up around January, and then it clears out around March. Like, it's a community that just kind of shows up, so you just know where to fish. Whereas this kid goes to like Champlain all over the place, but he's a trout guy, so he knows where the trout are all year because he's out there jigging for trout all summer. So he knows where they're setting up. He knows, he has a basic idea when they start to push shallow, when they start to get up in the water column. He knows all that because he's chasing them all year. So as a bass fisherman, I don't have no goddamn clue where the trout are. Any trout I've ever caught have been completely by accident. Like, I don't target trout. Trout is an entirely different game, and honestly, I feel bad when I catch a trout on bass gear because I'm shredding them poor bastards. Like, you hook it, the rods are not, because a trout rod's a more moderate action, softer rod. It's not horsing that fish in, and trout have soft mouths, and you're just like, I caught that one rainbow and I ripped his mouth. I broke his jaw. I caught him on a jerkbait, dude, and I just reeling him in. Like, he wasn't even fighting. And, when I got him in, I put him in the net, and I looked, and I had, like, broke part of his jaw off. Like, I hate it. Like, I don't want to hurt the fish. That's not my goal. But, he's got, like, all the equipment and stuff. So then he messages me, and Bear Fishing does a lot of, he's got the clammy glue shed and the freaking all the stuff. And I'm like, dude, if you guys want, we'll do some ice fishing content. So, but yeah, dude, it's just so funny to me to think about, like, for me in the Northeast, and you're a northern guy, so it's not like you're down south anymore, but like up here, like, a guy posted in my Facebook group today that he found ice to fish
already.
And I'm like, he claims. I'm my exact reply was, oh, apparently they're starting early this year. See you on the news. Like
Man,
there's too many people that are too desperate to take some wintertime swimming that I just don't dare do it. But
I can't see it. I'm not calling the man a liar. I'm not. But I
no,
mean,
but
come on, man. I mean, you're still
it,
getting 30s and 40s, and it's got, you know,
yeah, it's not stable ice, and that's the problem.
yeah,
Is people don't understand. Those of you who are down south, like Daniel here in the chat, there's a difference between stable and non-stable ice. There may be 6 inches, but that 6 inches has got air pockets in it. So what
yeah.
happens is water freezes, and then it gets a bubble, and then it freezes over top of the bubble, so it's weak in the center. And you step on that, it's gonna crack. It's like if you ever seen that cartoon movie Ice Age, where he like, pulls a acorn out of the ice and then all of a sudden the ice starts splintering. That actually happens on the water. If you hit a pressure crack just right, all of a sudden you're on an iceberg. You're not on water. You're not on hard water anymore. And I'm not. I weigh 325 pounds, so I'm the one that's going in if the ice starts to break away.
Yeah.
I'm the weight that's causing that to sink, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, so it's funny, like I was saying, is like for me, I'm thinking about taking my reels off my rods and start cutting line off of them. I just bought 600 yards of Invisex to spool up for next year, and I'm starting to pack fishing stuff away. And you're like,
I'm going to get more.
steal it, and you're ready
I'm
to
going
go.
to get more, man. It's great. That's why I fall into that category of trout bum. You know what I mean? Like when I put the post on there on Facebook, I actually hashtag the trout bumps. You know what I mean? Like that's me. I will travel. I will do what it takes to travel to catch trout. I mean, I absolutely love it. That's why I set that goal up for myself. If I'm in a state, if we vacation in a state, I don't blame them there. You know what I mean? Southeast Georgia guy, he ain't, the only ice he wants is in his iced tea. You know
exactly.
I mean?
Absolutely.
But I mean,
yeah, dude, it's funny.
We vacation, and I know there's a trout in that state. I'm going to do my research to try to take that state off of my bucket list. You know,
like I say, next year. Come on up, check VT off.
Oh, I'm telling you, once me and my wife start venturing up that way, because like I said, I've never really ventured past Delaware. I've never really ventured past New York. I don't know. Delaware is a little bit down from New York. Yeah. So I've never really ventured past New York. I've never really went fishing past like Lake Chautauqua on Lake Erie. But I know once I get up, into the New England states and hit New Hampshire and Vermont and Connecticut and Maine and Massachusetts, once I hit them and I catch that, I mean, I go crazy. I do the Mike Iaconelli over a 4-inch native rookie. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm screaming just like he does. So once I would get over there, and I've actually, watched the videos for like New Hampshire and Vermont and Connecticut, there's tons of YouTube channels of guys fishing over there. And I've seen it, to see those streams in just the setting that you guys have in the North, New England states up that way. I know it'll be very, very bad for me because I will be making whatever the hour trip is over there religiously, like telling my wife, hey, you wanted to go look at these lighthouses, right?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we're going to take a fishing trip.
See, I will say, dude, Vermont is very good. The one thing is, dude, Vermont is very good. We have a lot of like touristy things. Mm-hmm. So you could come up here. Hey, let's go see the Northeast in the fall.
Oh,
stay in an Airbnb in Vermont. Like it's a stigma thing. Like people come up here to get married and see the sights and see everything. But the funny part is in the fishing world, it's two different things. Like people think of Vermont as like this rural, touristy, beautiful scenery place. Fishermen go Champlain, Connecticut River, Winooski River. Like there's some rivers up here, like Connecticut River. Everybody's like that's from fly fishing world, I'm sure even you have
right. Yeah.
heard about the Connecticut River. That's one of the like premier, and that covers New Hampshire, Mass, Vermont. It's just right.
Mm-hmm.
The borders of all those states are formed by that river. So like it's it's got everything in it. And up here, dude, it's funny because as a bass fisherman, it's odd for me because Vermont's trout heavy. Like there's no conservation minded stocking of bass. There's no stat tracking of bass. The only thing they really do for stat tracking on bass is when you do a tournament, you're required to submit all the data of all the fish that were caught in the tournament to Fish and Game. That's all they do. They don't do electrofishing for bass. They don't do all that crap. Like they do it for trout. They do it for salmon. They do it for walleye. They actually stock walleye here because the walleye have been annihilated. But walleye are like protected in a lot of places. Like you can only catch one, and it's slot limit. Like across the state, like you're getting a limit. You're catching seven. Like there's actually a place by me that is like a preserve, so you can only catch a 17-inch. Period. Not an 18, not a 16. 17 is it. One and keep it.
Okay.
So you can catch and release, but you can't keep more than one 17-incher. That's how they're hardcore about it because they bet eradicate it. Because let's be honest, they're probably the best eating freaking fish
ever,
hands down. They're just good.
Ever.
So
Yeah.
and they're fun to catch. They're fun fish, But it's crazy because like every lake that I fish, they stock Lakers, they stock browns, they stock rainbows. Champlain they just stopped stocking Champlain because they found that the Lakers are naturally spawning again somehow. There was for a while they couldn't spawn. There was like soil quality or whatever wasn't there, but all of a sudden they found that they're able to spawn, so they've stopped stocking them and they focused on landlocks. But like dude, it's such a trout heavy. We have it's Vermont, dude. We have Orvis here. We have, all Manchester, Vermont there's about 15 different fly shops down there, and there's an entire factory down there I actually almost got a job at the Orvis factory when I lived in Manchester. Because they were hiring guys in the manufacturing facility to build rods. There was like rod builders and stuff like that they were hiring for. But it's weird being a bass fisherman in a predominantly trout state. But it's funny, dude, is you have that goal. So I have the same goal. Like if I ever won the Powerball, I said this to one of my buddies, is if I ever won like one of those ridiculous like $1 billion Powerball, something where I didn't have to work anymore, that's what I would do. Is I would start in Maine and I would just work my way across the country and try to catch a bass in every state.
Right.
Like that would be a cool goal to have. Like, and bass and trout, with the exception of trout, the thing about trout is you can go different species. So trout, bass, the black bass, for those of you who aren't familiar, there is technically 2 species of bass, and then there's subspecies underneath that because there's white and black bass. But the traditional like bass are pretty much in every state. Trout, I don't know if there's trout in every single state. Is there? I mean, there might be.
No.
There might be something that's like a trout, but I don't know if there is.
They're not in all states, especially like when we get down south. I was just fortunate whenever I lived in Alabama. There's actually 2 streams, and I lived by both of them. But the one provided trout fishing year round, which was only about an hour drive from my house. The other one was about 45 minutes drive from my house. And the one is actually like the backwaters from the dam at Smith Lake, which is like where the Bassmasters go. I think Drew Gregory might have won the kayak bass fishing tournament at Smith Lake the year that I was down there last year prior to. But I mean, that's like Smith Lake is like Jordan and Matt Lee's home lake, there's it's like right there by them. And like, it's a man-made lake. It's like 100 and some foot deep. It's an amazing lake. It's really huge. But like underneath the dam, which is massive, they got their water right there, which always remains cold, which is what
Yeah.
trout need to survive, especially in the South whenever you have the high temperatures.
Yeah, for those of you who
So-
aren't familiar, trout cannot survive in warm temperatures. They're not built for it, and they will literally die. Like, it's just how they are. Like, they in the summertime, like even up here in the Northeast, when it gets to be summertime, the lake trout are laying in 200 feet of water as deep in the mud as they possibly can to get as cold as they can. They do not like warm temperatures at all. I don't know if really isn't any species of trout that can really live in
No,
like 80
all
degree
trout
water.
species they have to have, and I don't know the certain temperature, but it has to be
Right.
like extremely cold, not extremely cold, but it has to be cold for them, and that's kind of why, like around May going into June, that's why I'll really stop chasing trout and switch over and start really focusing on
77
fishing on
degrees.
bass. 77, is that what it is?
It
I
says
thought it was
maximum tolerable water temperature, but some populations may be able to stand temperatures in the low 80s for a short period of time. Rainbow trout are the most sensitive.
yeah. And see, that's why, like
That's
in the
crazy.
summertime, I quit chasing them. I don't want to get
Yeah.
them overexerted, even if the water is
Yep.
cool, especially where my cabin is. It's mostly spring fed streams over there, and they remain cold. That's why they survive.
Yep.
Where our cabin's at, but just to get their heart rate up and have them fighting in the hot water, I don't want to do that. I don't want to traumatize them any. So
Well, it's just like bass. It's like when you get the smallmouth, you start catching them in the middle of summer and you're pulling them up from 80 feet and they're gassed and they got air bladders all over inflated because they're getting the bends from being so deep and ripped up. Like, that's actually why if you guys watched my video when I fished my first opening day of 2023 when I was catching those lake trout, the reason why I was able to catch those lake trout is because it was March and the water temperatures were 37 degrees. So those lake trout were only in 10 feet of water because they didn't need to be deep to get cold water. They could come up shallow. It actually probably honestly was too cold down deep for them, and they were coming up to get the warmer water because they were not having to deal with the warm temperatures. But
it was
that's
too cold for
crazy.
them deep, and it was too cold for you shallow. So.
Dude, I can't wait. I'm
awesome.
My dad, every time that comes up, he goes, "We gotta do that again. We gotta get out there again." And I'm like, to be honest, I'm actually rigging my rowboat this year to do that. So what I'm gonna do is I've got my rowboat. So I'm doing things a little differently this year. So I guess we can kind of go into that a little bit. So for Vinny Outdoors stuff and for my fishing career, what we're doing is I'm doing something a little bit different. One of them I'm not going to mention, but I'm going to be doing a different method of kayak tournament trail. If you want to learn about that, check it out on the May Contain Fishing podcast that we're going to do on Thursday. I'm going to be talking about the details of that, but I'm not going to be doing as many live events this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple big events. One of them I think is the Susky event, the Kayak Adventure Series. I'm thinking about doing one of those and maybe go on a trip or something. Abe has invited me to come up and fish with him on the St. Lawrence, so I got to take that. That's smallmouth heaven, and he's a local, so he knows all the spots. So I got to go up there. But one of the things I'm doing this year is I'm still going to be predominantly bass fishing. So for those of you who watch my channel for bass fishing, that's not going away. But I want to kind of venture out. The Jakes and Biggs multi-species tournament kind of opened my eyes to when the bass fishing gets slow, there's usually another species that gets hot. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you right now. Like bass fishing sucks right now, especially around you. I guarantee the bass fishing slowed right down, but steelhead fishing's popping off, pike fishing's popping off, like all that stuff like picks up because those are cold water species. So you kind of get different variances. So what I'm thinking about doing is rigging up I have a 14-foot rowboat with that Tatsu, and I'm going to take that. I'm going to put I think I'm going to buy one of those. I'm sure you've seen them, is Scotty makes that, they make a deck plate, downrigger. It's like goes right into one of the regular deck plates like they do for like small boat kayak type of mount. So I have those deck plates already bolted into the kayak in a couple of places. So I'm thinking about getting a downrigger, one of the hand crank Scotty ones. They're like $100. put that on there. I got to get a drift sock because that's a 9-horse on a 14-foot rowboat. I can't even go slow enough. I have a trolling motor. I have an electric trolling motor on there, but I don't want to try to like rely on that for an entire day of trolling. Like I know the name is trolling motor, but it's not gonna. I don't know if it's gonna have enough power to go slow enough to do like trout trolling and salmon trolling. But I'm thinking I'm just gonna get like a decent drift sock, throw it off the front of that boat so I can use the big motor to troll. And I think I'm gonna try to rig up a few. Honestly, I don't even necessarily need. I could get rods for my dad because my dad has a lot of like downrigger rods and stuff from Champlain. But you could use a bait caster for trolling. It's basically the same concept. Actually, bait casters have a stronger drag than most trolling reels. But so in the spring, I'm gonna go trout. I'm gonna go lake trout. I'm gonna like go lake trout heavy in April instead of trying to target those smallies that haven't really spawned yet. I'm gonna like go jig for trout. I'm gonna take that out there and troll for trout with the jerk baits and the spoons and the MEP spinners and
that'd be
all
awesome.
of that stuff. And then in the middle of the season, I'm gonna try to I refuse. I'm gonna tell you right now, and I know what you're thinking. I'm not doing fly fishing. I refuse to do it. I can't afford any more tackle, and that is not a rabbit hole I think financially I would ever recover from, because if you don't know what I mean, just Google how much does a fly fishing rod cost, and then you'll understand what I'm talking about. Because you buy a fly fishing rod, and then you got to buy the line, and then you got to buy the baits or make your own, and it's just there's another garage that you need to store all this stuff, because it's not a go to the store and buy a rod and a crankbait. It's I gotta have a fly tie-in kit. I gotta have different weight rods for different situations. Like you were saying, you didn't have rods that were, king salmon capable, dude. If you catch one, you've got to call me as soon as you catch it, dude. Because that's actually been one of my dreams, is when I was up on Lake Ontario, and actually the Salmon River, another example of a fly fishing. I'm sure you've heard of that one too. I saw a guy one time when I was a kid. We stopped and we were driving over a bridge, and we actually pulled over because this dude was sitting in a freaking rowboat like this, holding on for dear life, because he had a king salmon on in a 14-foot rowboat in the Salmon River, and it was dragging him upstream, and he was just holding on until that fish got tired.
Yeah.
Literally braced against the front of the boat, just getting dragged wherever that fish wanted to go. And that's the power of those fish. If you've never caught one of those things, dude, hands down, I've literally handed off the rod. We troll for them, and we have a 25-foot fiberglass that we use for deep sea style fishing. And dude, I've handed the rod off. Really? I've been 30 minutes into a fight and you're shaking, you're vibrating, your arm. I've had literally almost carpal tunnel established in I've actually had to wear a wrist brace because I hurt my wrist catching a fish. That's how powerful these things are, and it's just insane. And for you, dude, honestly, because I think, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's cohos and king. I know there's kings, because Lake Michigan is all the technology. So when you talk to guys on Lake Ontario and they talk about a new technique that they're using to catch salmon, the first words out of their mouth are, yeah, the guys in Michigan are doing this. It's not, oh, we invented this here. It's right. Half of the techniques are literally something that was invented by guys on Lake Michigan, and they just adapted it to Lake Ontario, because Michigan's, the premier lake for that. But dude, they're catching, and that's what's cool about Lake Michigan, dude, is you got that would be something that if I was gonna move, that would be a state to consider being around, the Lake Michigan area and any of the states that border it, because you've got the king salmon fishing, you got trout fishing, you got ridiculous smallmouth fishing. They do have largemouth. People don't realize, people don't think about it because it's not really publicized, but Michigan has huge largemouth. You just got to go find them. It's a little harder to find that vegetation on a lake like that. So you have and then you got steelhead in your streams. You've got freaking, I think they have pike too, right?
I'd
I
imagine.
want to say they have huge pike in there. I think I've seen
Yeah.
videos. So like your mecca of fishing is centered. I mean, Michigan's a whole different world, dude. That's like everything's centered around fishing up there. But
Uh, I'm hoping to be able to establish something for Lake Michigan. Like I can kind of start to
yeah,
put the pieces of the puzzle together, just like I did for Lake Erie. I knew where to be, east, west. So I'm hoping to put the pieces of the puzzle together for Lake Michigan.
yep. Now there is obviously lakes that are closer than 4 hours to you, right? You're just going
Oh
up there
yeah,
because you can, because it's available
because of the
right now.
steelhead, because of the steelhead, because of the chance of catching a salmon. That's the only reason. I mean, like I said, me and my wife was just out, kind of exploring around the house here. I found a really nice lake. I'll get out on it. I wanted to get out on it last weekend, but I got sick. I don't know if you heard my voice in our last podcast. It was starting to go
Yeah.
down. And I got like not deathly sick, but like it got to the point like my throat, was coughing all the time. And
Yeah.
so it was, I told her, I said, I'm not even going fishing Saturday. I stayed home, just messed around here in the garage, working on things, getting ready for this steelhead trip here.
Yeah.
But there's a lake that's like 30 minutes from my house. They catch bass and crappie on it. There's a lake on the other direction. It's 20 minutes from my house. It's a huge walleye lake.
The walleye
So
are
I'm
fun.
kind of debating on whether or not to try to figure that out for walleye, or like I said, now that I caught that steelhead, my wife, I want to take her back up there, Lake Michigan.
Now walleye are cold water too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's another thing you could definitely try too with the kayak. Go out and try to catch a walleye.
See, that's like right now. That's what my boy, because we had the kids here for Thanksgiving, and my boy, was asking me, he's like, walleye come in at night, don't they? Up on Lake Erie,
Yep.
and I was like, absolutely. That's when we would go steelhead fishing in the morning,
And then walleye.
and then in the evening, we'd swing over to another part of Lake Erie, and cast spoons and jerk baits.
Walleye is more trolling, right?
They
More
they,
of an action,
they
more of a
do
reaction style.
in the spring, and then in the summer. Mostly that's how all the guys catch them is trolling. I take my kayak up there in the spring, and I just cast for them. But now, like in the wintertime, especially where we was in the Cleveland area, they will start coming in at night because most guys are fishing for the steelhead, things like that. There, so they're putting salmon eggs and everything else out into the water.
Oh yeah.
So those the walleye are drawn in for that, and Lake Erie does have, not a lot, but they do have a run of salmon every so often, and you'll get guys are catching them every now and again here lately. So there is a little bit of a salmon run on Lake Erie, so the walleye will come in for that there, but mostly the walleye come in at night, to feed on stuff. Here whenever it starts to get, especially in the colder months, they'll come in. They'll come in a lot closer to shore.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's my goal, dude, next year. So like I was saying, is my plan is to do some more multi-species stuff, and like kind of like our last podcast, the Nemesis Lakes. So what I'm committing to is I'm gonna go out and fish some of these lakes that I've struggled with. I'm gonna do an entire series. So I'm literally gonna do a video where I'm like, okay, this is the plan, and I'm gonna fish it, and I'm gonna record it, and I'm gonna actually show it. If I suck, if I get my ass kicked, you guys are gonna see it. I'm not gonna delete the footage and be pissed off and run away. I'm gonna like have you guys come with me on my journey of trying to figure these things out. The other thing I'm gonna do is baits. So I'm gonna catch a damn fish on a spinner bait. I'm gonna catch a damn fish on a blade bait. I'm gonna catch a legitimate bass on a jerk bait because the biggest fish I've caught so far was like 12 inches. And I'm gonna literally just like learn all these new techniques and like kind of document it as I go and like show everybody my learning curve, because I know I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but to be honest, most of the time I'm making the stuff up on the fly and I just figure something out, and that's kind of what fishing is. But
adapting.
It's just adapting and knowing how to adapt is what makes the difference. But that's kind of my goal, is I want to learn some of these stuff, and like walleye, I want to learn how to catch all these different species. I'll probably bug you about trout stuff because I don't know shit about trout like at all. Again, anytime I've caught trout, it's been in my personal fishing. It's been on accident when we're trolling. A lot of times we're trolling for salmon. and they eat the same stuff. So you'll be like, oh, that's a lake trout. That's not a salmon. It's like, to be honest, trout fishing is probably more productive than salmon fishing on Champlain because there's a lot more of them. But it's just like, I've never really targeted all these species, and I've decided that it's just fun to catch fish. Like, it's not about just bass fishing. It's about, it's what it is. And I think it's all about like the competition. It's, if you have a competitive nature, if you like to challenge yourself, at the end of the day, I accomplished something. If I caught a 6-inch perch, a 5-pound bass, a 10-inch trout, I outsmarted that animal in that moment. And that's what it's all about for me. It's just like deer hunting. Honestly, I would love to shoot another 8-point buck, but at the same time, I had a 4-pointer. I could have killed a 4-pointer this year. And I'm not like some elitist hunter that's like, oh, he was too small. He was 80 pounds. Like, he was dumb. Like, this was last year's, you know what I mean? He was like a baby.
Right.
I just let him go. I'm just like, I saw him and I'm like, no. I'm like, he can make more babies and he can have a good year, and I'm not shooting it. I could have shot it, but to be honest, I saw a buck in the woods. I didn't shoot a deer during rifle season, but you know what? It was a successful season because I saw a buck in the woods. It's the same thing with fishing. I caught a perch today. Yeah, it sucks. I didn't catch a bass. I was targeting bass. All I caught was pike today. It's funny because I realize sometimes I'm jaded too. Like, when you do this long enough, like, you're going to have a hard time because you went out and caught a fucking 28-incher for your first fish. So now your standards are higher. But like, for me, it's like, I have lakes that I've never caught a fish bigger than 12 inches. You know what I mean? And I just stopped going there because but like, what's funny is I have a lake that I love to fish that I catch 15-inch bass, which is, again, the tone right there. That's probably the perfect example. For those of you listening, you don't even have to see my face. I want, it's a 15-inch bass. But some people have never caught a 15-inch bass. To some people, that's a PB. And I forget that sometimes. Like, I have a lake that I can go catch 20 of them things because it's so loaded with fish. And I come home, and my wife sometimes puts things into perspective for me because I'll be like, she'll be like, how was it? I'm like, I caught like 12. And she'll be like, 12? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, 15 inches. And she's like, 12. And I'm like, yeah. That's not a big deal because this lake I could catch 20 if I really wanted to. I was trying for bigger fish, so I actually slowed down and went different areas. But like, that's what's funny about it is you kind of get these weird, obscure standards for yourself. Like, you start to like, oh, I want to catch. When you start bass fishing, for me, I don't know how it was for you, but like when I started fishing in general, it was like I was just wanting to catch as many as I could. And then it starts getting, okay, now I want a 5-pounder. Now I want a 6-pounder. Now I need a 7-pounder to break my PB. Now I want a smallmouth. Now I want a bigger smallmouth. Now I want a walleye. You start to like rabbit hole down into, okay, now I need to catch this other subspecies because I haven't caught one yet. Like, it becomes a scavenger hunt more than a freaking. It's your way of competing with yourself because if you don't challenge yourself, then it's like, why am I here in my mind? But the days of sitting on the shore with a beer and just killing time is not fishing for me. It's about I beat that animal because I caught a bigger version of that animal. Like,
see, that's what kills me whenever the guys are like, yeah, I'll get fishing with you. Let's get a case of beer. We'll go sit alongside the river. And I'm like,
yeah, I know.
That's what I used to do whenever I was like, 15, 16, and I needed to drink beer.
Yep.
I was telling my mother I was going fishing, but actually I was going to drink beer, and we just took our fishing rods with us.
That's what ice fishing is. So that's what ice fishing is. Sorry for the hardcore ice fishing guys, but that's what ice fishing is. Ice fishing is a community of beer drinkers that need an excuse to go drink beer. So they do it on the lake.
Right. On a frozen lake.
On a frozen lake. That's really what ice fishing is for me, though, dude. It's that. That's where I go for like my social hangout and stuff. But that even then, dude, that's why I don't do it, because I don't want to go all day to catch 2 perch. Because I don't know. The problem with ice fishing, I think, for me, is there's no strategy. I can't tell where the structure is. I don't know where the fish are going to be. So I don't know where to drill that hole. And that's a knowledge base that I've got to pick up.
I would try to do that. Like when I was ice fishing pretty hardcore back in Pennsylvania, and me and my buddy would go out, we would get maps, topographical maps.
Yep.
And then you had to get the winter ones because they let the water down,
Yeah,
so you kind of, try to figure out where you're at on there, and then you see like the point, and then you're like, okay,
Yep.
so this water's frozen. This is the point, and there's the creek bed. You know, like you're trying to. You look like a surveyor out there. You're walking around with your
Yep.
with your auger, and you're like, drill here.
Yep.
You know.
See, that's actually though. That's one of the reasons why I kind of want to ice fish, because so there's some lakes that are not far from my house that have a lot of pike, and they have big pike, like big pike, right? So I'm thinking the good thing about the ice fishing, which is where my mentality is coming in, is I can be scouting for bass fishing, because where those fish are in the ice in is where they're going to be ice out. So if you know where they are by catching them ice fishing, you're going to know where they're coming from when they're going to spawn. So it's going to be, to me, and that's where it's kind of funny, is I've kind of changed my thinking about it, is like I'm scouting. It's like deer hunt scouting. I'm out there looking for poop in the woods, but in this case, I'm looking for bass, because you can catch bass in the wintertime. It's not we don't have a bass season here. Bass are open season all year long. There is no closed season for bass in Vermont. It's, you can't keep them, but it's catch and release all year.
Right.
So even smallmouth are catch and release. There's no closed season for bass. There is for trout, but not for bass. So what I can do is I can literally go, in my mind, I can go to some of these home lakes, and that one lake, that Nemesis Lake, Bombazine, is a huge ice fishing lake. People love, that's one of the predominant ice fishing lakes. So my thought is, I can get out there and get a scouting report, because if I go out there and I start catching bass on tip-ups in 80 feet of water, then all I've got to do is extrapolate, okay, from that 80 feet of water, where are they going to the bank to spawn? And I think that's why I miss the spawn, because I don't know where they are. So I don't know where they are in the summertime, but a lot of these guys that talk about, a lot of the guys that I know that catch the smallies in the spawn, right? They're also ice fishing guys. And I never made that connection. But I made that thought. My buddy was telling me, he's like, yeah, dude, there's, you know, you go out this point and you drill these holes in this area, and if you fish there, you'll catch bass. Because I know guys that, like, they're targeting trout, but you'll catch bass by accident, you know, because you're using live bait. I mean, you're throwing a fucking shiner on a hook, anything's gonna eat it. So literally, like, it's more for me, it's going to be a scouting adventure. Once these lakes freeze up safe enough, I can go out and go, okay, so they're here. I'll bring my freaking fish finder out there and mark a waypoint if I have to. And then I'm like, okay, so if they're here, where's the shoreline that they're probably going to pull into? Where's the bay they're going to cut into? Where's the point? Where's the creek channel that they're going to pull into to spawn? And then that's going to help me extrapolate some of this stuff. So it's funny, like, I'm thinking of it that way, and honestly as a pastime, because like I said, I'm on the internet talking about fishing because I can't fish right now. I could, but it's not worth it. I'm not a steelhead trout lake fisherman. I don't even own a pair of waders, so I'm not doing it. But that's kind of what I thought is, like, my logic is, I'll be sending you pictures of me freezing my ass off on a lake, and you can send me pictures of you freezing your ass off in a stream, and that's how we'll probably spend the winter time.
That's right.
Now, the streams never really freeze, so there's not really an off season for that, right? I mean, essentially, they freeze, but they
did over in Pennsylvania. Like I said, I told a story in a couple of podcasts. Yeah. We spent like 3 hours breaking the ice.
Yeah.
That was in like December and January, when you expect it to freeze up. What it's like here in Indiana, I don't know. Now, the stream that I was just on, like I said, they had that lamprey, the dam there. So there was, like some backwater from that dam right there. So I imagine it's probably going to freeze up. But I was upstream. I walked probably a good 2 miles upstream from our starting point. Got into some faster water. So I'm assuming if I get up that
faster
far,
water won't freeze usually.
Yeah, that'll stay pretty open.
When you start seeing like chop on the water when it's running down through and it's bouncing off the rocks and stuff, that's not going to freeze. It's going to be freaking cold, but it's definitely not, because there's a creek right here, a creek. As you know, in Vermont we don't have creeks, we have cricks, but there's one right here by my house that it will freeze at times, but that's mostly because what happens is it gets so shallow that it doesn't like have enough water to have current, but a lot of times it's open a lot of the year, and guys will go wait it to catch like pike, and like guys actually, it's funny because guys around here will catch pike on fly rods too.
See, that would be awesome to me. Like I
That
could
would be
get in. I
ridiculous.
could get into that too. Yeah, I would do that.
Because dude, it's funny. Like that's the thing. Like up here, it's like kind of like Wisconsin. Like it's the northern pike guys, dude. They get fucking amped for wintertime because that's when the pike really, really shine. Like you're catching 40-inch pike out of a freaking 8-inch hole in the ice. You know, like you have
That's
to like
awesome.
maneuver that thing to get it to come through the hole because it doesn't fit. Like you have to gaff it to get it through the hole, and you know these guys are catching monster. Because bass will definitely hit, trout will definitely hit, but pike, dude, there's something about the wintertime that they thrive, and I think it's just because they're so predatory that they'll eat anything that moves.
See, when I ice fish, used to ice fish, the first 2 fish that I brought through the ice was 2 pike. I've never caught a pike. I've never caught a pike fishing in the summertime or just, like casting.
Jesus.
But, with my tip ups, first 2 fish I've ever caught were pike.
That's funny.
Through the ice. Never caught it. Never caught them fishing.
That's funny, dude, because around here, I don't think I've gone fishing. I think the last 10 trips, I caught more pike than bass. There was one trip I caught 6 pike instead of bass, like everywhere I went. And dude, pike are weird too because they hit weird. Like one thing that they'll do, which is really odd, is I call them like torpedoes. So what they'll do is they'll shoot from under your kayak. So you'll have like 6 feet left. Like you can see your bait coming in, and it's a natural instinct. For some reason, fishermen always do it. We watch our bait like as it comes in. We kind of slow it down, and we kind of just like watch it in the water for a minute before we pull it out of the water. That's when the pike, all of a sudden, you just see this freaking green dart go phew, under your boat, and you're like, you'll see it if you watch my videos. Every once in a while, you'll see me, and I'm just reeling, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, holy shit, like, because it's right there. It's like 2 inches off the side of your kayak. Like I've had a pike hit the bottom of my kayak on the way to the bait because they just shoot in out of nowhere because they lay on the bottom and they just pounce. But it's the funniest thing, dude, because I've had pike hit my bait while I was trying to pick a bird's nest out.
Oh, yeah.
Just sitting there like a crankbait, just floating on top of the water, just a square bill floating, and I'm sitting there pulling line out of my reel, pinching it and trying to do that whole freaking thumb trick to get that knot out, and then all of a sudden I look down and my pole's bent over and there's a freaking pike on there. And then I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to reel this thing in with a ball of line in my hand. And it's like they'll I've had pike hit topwater, which is freaking fun, dude.
Yeah.
You want to have some fun, dude. You take a whopper plopper in a pike lake, dude. They come on and they jaws it. It's the coolest thing. I've got it on video a few times. They like the dorsal fin comes out of the water and they swim right across the surface of the water and they smoke this thing. And it's the coolest. You'll see it. You'll see like this thing show up and then like this like weird line just dart right at the bait, and they'll smoke that top water. And I have a couple of whopper plots. That's how my wife loves. Like that's one of the things she loves to do the most is we'll be fishing and she'll just cast a whopper plopper off the back, and like I'll be trolling with the trolling motor to hit the next spot, and she's just dragging it. And she'll be like, got one, and I'll look back and she's got like an 18-inch pike on there because they love topwater, dude. It's the weirdest thing because you wouldn't think like they lay on the bottom, but they come unglued for frogs and freaking poppers. And I actually got to learn how to walk a spook. That's the other thing that's another technique I want to learn. I've never walked like a spook or.
Oh, really? Oh,
no.
Man, I love it.
Never done it.
I ended up catching one down in Louisiana, pike.
Yep.
I don't even know if it was a pike or a pickerel. Could have been one or the other. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. But I was fishing the KBF down there on Lake Cato, and first thing in the morning, I was walking a spook across the water, and it come up and missed it, and I'm like, man, really?
They'll come back for
it. And I flipped it back out there, and as soon as it hit the water, I mean, you could see the tail turn and went right back over, and I'm like, oh, here we go, this is it. I set the hook, and it was only probably like maybe a 16-inch pike pickerel, and I brought it in, and I'm like, oh, I'm expecting a bass, low light.
Yep.
I was anticipating a bass, but here was a pike or pickerel, and I hurried up and took it off and got back fishing. But yeah, I caught one.
What's crazy about pike and pickerel is they're deceptive. So the way they fight horizontally.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So they use they know they're long. So they swim, but they change direction and they swim sideways. So you think you've got a 5-pounder on because of the way they pull, because they dog you. They're not like a smallmouth where they swim up, and they're not like a largemouth where they kind of head shake and just pull. They dog you. They go side to side. They kind of fight almost like a lake trout. They use their body mass instead of, but the way they feel, because of the way they're shaped, they swim sideways, so you feel like you've got a freaking monster on. And you, like I said, if you watch any of my videos, you'll hear it. You'll be like, oh, it's a fucking pike, like, because you get all amped up, and then you're like, oh, this is not even a freaking bass. And the problem is what's worse is when you don't know what you got, because I don't know how many times I've set the hook and then nothing came back, because the way they come in from the side and they just go right through your line. So you got them for a second, and then as soon as you pull that hook, you're dragging it across a mouthful of razor blades, and it just snaps that line. And if you're using like fluoro, that hook's gone. The bait's in the fish's mouth, and it's staying there. So, all right, we're going on an hour and a half, so I'm probably gonna call it right here. But I do want to thank you guys for showing up. There was a few of you in here communicating and talking. For those of you on podcast form, come hang out with us on the live streams. You can chat, you can talk. I'm going to be doing some sneaky stuff later on. I'm thinking about having some hats made up. I might be doing some giveaways. And there's going to be some information on that in future streams. But the only way you're going to get that is to be here live. So come check it out on the live stream. And hopefully the next time we're back, PJ will be talking about how he caught himself a king salmon on a fly rod, and we'll have lots of stories about his fishing adventures, because mine are done for the year. So, but yeah, we're going to end it right here. You got anything else you want to throw in there? Or?
Just if anybody listening has anything about Indiana, Lake Michigan, steelhead fishing, man, drop me a line. Help me out. Like I said, there's not much on the internet, so any help I can get, I definitely
hit some comments
it.
on the video here. Put some comments on there. Reach out to me. I can get you in contact with them. PJ's on Facebook. I don't know what other social medias he wants to share, because we do like to be somewhat private in our lives. But don't hesitate to put a comment down below, and I can get you guys in touch, because we want to help our boy out. Maybe get him on some bigs. So
something.
But all right, guys, we will see you again in a couple of weeks. I will do another announcement when we're going to be live. And like I said, if you haven't already, check out the Maine Contained Fishing podcast. It's going to be on Thursday. We're going to be talking about a new tournament opportunity that I'm going to be doing. So you're going to want to check that one out as well. For now, we're going to get out of here, and thank you guys for watching.